Today we're going to be looking at preparing and critical reading. And that's not just the preparing of yourself as you are writing and reading, but preparing yourself for your editing as well. When you're reading, you need to think about why you're reading. So take stock of the type of reading that you're doing. What are your reading habits? Do you read mostly fiction or nonfiction? Do you like to pick up the newspaper if you still can find one, or a magazine? There's different types of reading that you do with each one of those. So how do you prepare when you're reading for academic purposes? You just pick up the book and just start reading? Do you look through it? What do you do? How do you begin your reading? Do you just look to see what you're supposed to read pages 7 to 15, and you open the page 7? How do you find your motivation for your reading? When you are doing your reading, do you highlight or underline? Why do you decide to do that? And if you do any of these things, how are these strategies working? So when you're reading, you got to really get into the mindset of, why am I reading this content? When I'm reading a novel, I'm not going to read it really closely. I'm not going to highlight or underline things. If I'm reading a novel for learning, like I am trying to emulate one of the writers, then I would highlight and underline. So you need to think about the reasons you're reading the way that you are, and consider the strategies that you're using. And if they're working for you, continue them. And if they're not, then you need to think about changing your strategies. So as you read, you need to read strategically. This means read with a purpose. Read for the desire to learn. Ask yourself, why do I want to learn? And as you're reading, add what you're reading to your context. If you know very little about the subject, then find the one thing that you do know, and that can help you understand it better. And ask yourself some questions. And you can even make a chart as you're reading, and the chart can have 3 sections. This is what you already know about the subject, so you write all that down. And then what you want to know about the subject, so write that down. And then after you've read it, write what you have learned. And this will help you to remember the reading that you've done, and will also help you to learn some of the things that you might not have known before. So it will help the reading stick. You could also preview the text. That means taking the book and just thumbing through the section that you're doing. I know it's hard when you have a digital reading, but there are sometimes arrows down at the bottom that'll show you the next page, or you can scroll down. So just give it a quick preview, a quick scan. And as you're reading, you might find that you need to adjust your reading speed. So I mentioned last week that you might have to read something twice or slow down. Sometimes you can speed up depending on the context that you're covering. You might find that you already know something, so you can read through that section quicker, or you need to learn this again, so you read it slower, or you read it a second or third time. As you are reading, you want to look for the organizational cues. So with your reading that you're doing, and with the writing that you're doing, you want to look into the paragraphs and the thesis. And I should say intro, paragraphs, and thesis. But make sure that you have the intro paragraph and the thesis in there. You want to also make sure that there are clear transitions that draw the reader from one idea to another. And look at the headings. If you're going to be using headings, make sure you're also using transitions. Headings are sometimes used to organize different sections together, but I have seen them where students use headings instead of transitional statements. So look for the organizational cues, not only in your writing, but in the reading that you're doing, and see if you can pick these things out and maybe even underline them, because the transitional statements will help you to better understand how the ideas are connected. And the headings will give you ideas about what you are reading. So as you're reading, there's going to have inside of you an initial response. This could be your bias that you're bringing to your reading. And it could be that your initial response is a positive, could be a negative, could be neutral to whatever you're reading, but there's going to be a reaction. So you have to understand your reactions. What creates your reactions? Do you have a personal experience with this? If you have experienced something terrible in your life and the author is writing about that experience, let's say that you have lost a loved one in battle, in war. So you've lost somebody that you love went off to fight a war and they have died. So the person is writing about that. And maybe they're writing about how deaths in war are meaningless. So your personal experience is going to change that. It's going to change your reading. You might become angry with reading about that because of your personal experience. Also think about your position on the issue. It could be that you agree completely with the writing. You agree completely with the author. Think about just the differences between Fox News and CNN. They have different positions on the same issues. You can watch one and then you can watch the same report on the other, and there's going to be a different position. No matter what it is, there's going to be a different position on the issue that's there. So you want to try to remove your opinion from your reading. And think about this as politics. I don't like talking about politics in any manner, simply because politics, they come from deep within. If you truly do follow something ideologically, it comes deep within. So I have a friend who does not like our current president at all, refuses to call him the president, refuses to even agree with anything that he says. So any article that comes with showing him in any sort of positive light will be met with anger. And any article that comes showing him in a negative light is met with jubilation and joy. She will maybe post this article on Facebook or on Twitter and say, look at this, look at what our president has done. And there will be exclamation marks and smiles and whatever, because of how excited she is from our president falling on his face. So what I am saying, though, is you certainly can read with your opinion in your mind, but think about how that opinion really changes your response to the reading. And as you're trying to read critically, you need to remove your opinion from the reading. Look for the facts. And if you are taking an article from a source that you trust, try to pick out the facts. But I also suggest that you try to find the same article or the same information from a source that you don't trust, and see how the facts are spun a different way, or how the information is relayed to you, relayed to the reader in a different way. Because they're going to have some of the same facts, they might have different facts in either one. So get a whole picture. Don't just try to go into one place, somewhere that it agrees with your opinion. And remove the opinion from your reading by finding completely different sources on it. when you are reading, you're going to come across difficult text. Maybe you feel that our textbook is difficult to get through, or there's going to be some textbooks that you're going to come across in your later career, or some articles you're going to come across that are going to be difficult to read. There are some easy ways to crack into that. Look for the familiar items that you know. Just flip through the text and find the things that you know and see if your opinion or your knowledge is correct on there. Then once you've read it, you want to go through the reading a second time and look for the landmarks. And what that means is look for the pieces of information that you can glean from it that will take you through the complete understanding of the text. And when you're doing that, you're going to keep track of your understanding, meaning you have a notebook beside you and you're writing different notes from the reading. And just keep at it. Be persistent with your reading. You want to always make sure that as you are reading, if you have 10 pages to read, just be persistent. Read through them until you understand the text. And you can also annotate the text, underline, circle, write question marks next to it, but have a system. Make yourself a key like you would if you were making a map. So 2 underlines might mean that this one item is related to another. A circle means look up this word and find out what it means. 2 question marks means this is a big question. Another question mark means, is this related to something else? So annotate it so you can come back to it and you can get the little pieces of information. You don't have to reread the whole thing to get your ideas. You can just find the little pieces of information when you annotate your text. All right. So we need to look at your writing now, because that's what you're going to be doing this week. You're going to be editing and revising your paper. You got to look at a few different things. Look at your organization of your writing. Is the text that you are summarizing, does it flow correctly? Do you have the story straight? Do you have your voice straight? Do you change from first person to second person to third person? Or do you change from past tense to present tense throughout your writing? Make sure your voice is consistent through the whole thing. Make sure that you're also using the same type of voice. Don't have one paragraph talk in general and slang terms, and then your next one be very academic. Make sure that the whole paper is academic, and make sure that it's your text as well. Don't plagiarize. Then look for clarity. Have you said too much about a subject or not enough on a subject? What do you need to do to make sure that it is clarified? And if you feel like you have 3 paragraphs on one part of a subject and 1 on another, see if the single paragraph is necessary, or if all 3 paragraphs on that first part of the subject are necessary. Make sure you have enough information, but make sure you don't have too much information as well. Then you're going to rewrite your work and then revise it, and then just set it aside. Take a break from your work, set it aside for a day if you can, 2 days, whatever. That's why the class is set up as it is, so you can take some time to work at a revision and then set it aside to get some distance from it, because the distance really does help. And if you remember my suggestion for editing, the distance that you can get for it can be aided by the mixing up of your text. So you remember my one of my earlier lectures where I threw the papers up into the air. Make sure that the text can be new to you by throwing the papers up in the air and then getting into a different order. So then you set it aside, and if you can't set it aside, then try that editing trick. All right, we're going to do a little bit of a practice here. The word only. This sentence, she told him that she loved him. So this is going to be clarity. Let's do this. So this is going to add some clarity to your sentences. So think about this. This is just a practice. This is just an example. So the word only can be placed in a sentence in 8 different spots, and it will come out with a different meaning each time. So look at this. Only she told him that she loved him. So he was standing around, and she was the only one that said that she loved him. Now she only told him that she loved him, meaning that she was standing around, there were a bunch of different people, and she was the only one that told him. Or she was talking to 5 different people, and she told only him that she loved him. She told 4 other people that I like you, and she told him that she loved him. She told him only that she loved him. That's kind of the same meaning, but the context is a little bit different. She told him that only she loved him. This one is kind of possessive. So you can go up to she went up to him and said, "I'm the only one that loves you." That's kind of weird. Anyway, she told him that she only loved him. So this is kind of a bit of a secret. I only love you. This one, she told him that she loved only him. That one kind of sounds like a lie. Somebody is cheating on somebody else. So she told him that she loved only him. I like that other guy, but I love you. Or this one's sweet. She told him that she loved him only. So as you can see, the placement of the word only changes the context of the sentence completely. And there's different clarity that is added by the movement of this single word. So think about this as you are writing and as you're taking a break too. After you've done your first review and you've taken some time, then you're going to want to do your second review. This is where you're going to look for your grammar, your spelling, make sure you have your correct citations and your citation format. And then you'll set it aside again, and maybe you want to read through it again, just depending on what you have time for. But then you're ready to submit.